Hi everybody. So like I promised, I'm going to make a video here for your final project assignment. This video is going to be about how to wrangle data in the Excel Power Query editor. Okay. And like I said in class, the workflow is exactly the same if you're working in Power BI on a desktop, on a PC. But if you have a Mac, then you have to wrangle the data this way. And then I'll show you how to use the Power BI app online. Okay, but for this assignment, what we're going to be doing is downloading data from the World Bank on female labor force participation and GDP, like in previous exercises. Those data are going to be in wide form, and we need to convert them to long form. And then we're also going to be working a little bit with data from the V-Dem dataset. Those data are already in long form, but there's too much data. So we have to select the columns that we want to work with, and we have to filter out some of the years. Okay, and then the last step is going to be to merge the two data sets because a lot of you have been talking about how you want to analyze the relationship between democracy and other variables. So this will serve as an example for how to do that. Okay, so to get started, let's go ahead and we'll go to the World Bank development indicators. And we'll go ahead and start downloading our data. So we're pretty sure we're already in the right database. In the countries we want to select, like last time, we want to select all of the countries. And let's also go in here, don't just select all, go to countries and select all the countries, because if you select all, then you'll select all the aggregates too. You don't want to select all of the aggregates, but let's go in here to the aggregates and just select world as well. Okay, and we'll close this here, and then we'll go to series, and here we want to get data on labor force participation again. Here we go. Female labor force participation rate, but this is 15 plus. We want 15 to 64 for the working age population. All right, so we'll select that, and then we'll go back up here and we'll select for search for GDP. Per capita GDP constant, 2015 US dollars. Okay. And then we'll go ahead and close that and open this. And then we're just going to select the most recent 25 years to get a nice time series. So we'll hit apply changes. Then we'll go ahead and download this. We can download it as an Excel file. And then wherever it downloads from, just go ahead and go into your downloads folder. I'm going into my downloads folder now. There it is in my downloads folder. I'm just going to take that and I'm going to drag it over to another folder where I'm going to use it. And that folder I have is just a Power BI lesson. So some of this stuff you saw in the other class, in class the other day. There's the Turkey Day data. Okay. All right. But we're going to do this again so that you can get a better sense of it. All right, so that's done. So now go ahead and fire up Excel. And the other thing I want to show you here is we also have the V-Dem data. So if you go to the V-Dem Varieties of Democracy website and you select on the database, right, or download data, it's pretty obvious where it is on the website, and then from there select download as a CSV file. You'll get this file, and then just put it in the same folder. If you want to follow along and haven't done that yet, maybe pause the video and go and get those data. But I'll just kind of charge ahead here And what you want to do is not open these files directly in Excel. You want to first just start a new workbook, because if you open them directly, then you have to convert it into a table. And I find this workflow to be a little bit better. So just go to Data, okay, in your empty workbook. Go to Get Data, from File, from Excel Workbook, okay, and then go to the folder where you have it saved, Power BI lesson, there it is. And that's the file we just downloaded, so go ahead and open that. And what you're going to want to do is select data. You don't need the metadata. So there's two tabs here in the workbook that you're trying to open. There's the actual data, and then there's the metadata, which tells you where the data come from and all that stuff. So you want to select on data, and you want to select transform data, and that's going to take us to the Power Query editor, all right, where we're going to be doing our work here. All right, and so you notice these are the data, and you'll notice that they are in wide form. So the years here are in the columns, but we don't want the years in the columns. We want the years in the rows. So like I was saying earlier, we want these data in long form. So we want every column over here to represent a variable, okay, and we want every row to represent an observation for a country in a year. Okay, so that's what we're going to work on next. So we're going to use pivot here to get these data into, we're going to do a pivot to get the data from the years into the rows, and then we're going to unpivot the series to get those into the columns, if that makes sense. So just select on the first year and then hit Shift, and then scroll over to the last year. In this case, 2021. All right, and select on that, and it should select all of those columns. Okay, and then we can go ahead and hit, go to Transform here, the Transform tab. Thank you. And from there, we are going to do unpivot columns. And that should put all of the, right, now we see we just have one column of observations here, and we have the years in the rows here, okay? So now what I mentioned earlier was that we want to have the series in the columns. So we want labor force participation and GDP per capita to be in the columns. So first, let's go ahead, so things don't get confused, and let's go ahead and just delete the series code. We don't need that, and that may just mess things up. So go back to the Home tab, and on the Home tab you can do Remove Columns, and then here on the series name, select on that, go back to Transform, and then what you want to do is to do a pivot column, and that should put the series into the columns. And then it asks you, this is pretty crucial, which column are the values in. The values here are here in the, let me just cancel out of this for a second. The values are in the value column. So that's the values for each country year. The labor force participation rate for each country and year, and the same thing for GDP per capita. Okay, so go ahead and do the pivot column again. And this time, select value and select OK. And there we go. Now we have, oops, I missed a step actually. So here's a nice lesson. So if you mess anything up in Power Query Editor, no worries, just hit the X and it goes right back to where it was. So you don't really have to fear messing up. You can just kind of go right back. So one step I missed here. So if we're going to pivot this and we're going to select value, along the way, select advanced options and don't aggregate, because otherwise it'll turn the value into a count or something else. So don't aggregate, and now try it, and there we go. Now we have the values in the columns. All right. So from here, I think the next thing you want to do is change this into the variable name here, female labor force participation. And here, GDP per capita, just to something more manageable. Okay. And what are some other things we can do to clean up these data? So it's in general format, but really we want this to be a decimal format. Before we even do this step, we have to get rid of these dots and we have to turn them into missing values. So basically you can just do this with, you can select both these columns. Here we go. Replace values. And the value defined is ... and you replace it with a blank. And then let's see if it's going to let us change the type. Yep, let's see if we can change type for 2 columns at once. And we want to change this to decimal number. See if it'll work this time. Yes, it worked this time. Okay. So there you go. So now we have missing values for the missing values, or null for the missing values, and we have that's in a decimal form. Okay, so what's this? This is supposed to be year, but notice you've got this weird bracket, year 1997, and it's in character form. So right now, yeah, we need to do something about this. So, so what we're going to do is we're going to split that. And we're going to do it by delimiter. And basically what we're going to tell it to do is to split this based on the first space that it sees. So the first delimiter here is going to be the space after 7 in this row, in this cell, after 8 in this cell, etc. So let's go ahead and split that column by delimiter. And space is good, and we'll do the leftmost one because we want it to split at the first one it sees. All right, and then hit OK. All right, and now we've got a year here, and it split it and it changed the column names to attribute 1 and attribute 2. But let's just change this to year. All right, and then this one we don't need anymore, so we can go ahead and get rid of that. Now year here is in number form, which we're just going to leave it like that for now. Eventually we want to convert this into a date, but we're going to hold off on that for a second. All right, until after because another task we want to include here is merging this table with another table, and for that we're just going to leave it in year format and then convert it after the merge, if that makes sense. All right. All right, so that's that. So let's go ahead, close. When you're finished with it, you can just hit close and load. And now we've done a lot of work here, so we'll probably, after this loads up, we want to save it somewhere. All right. Save as. And we'll go ahead and save it in this Power BI lesson. And today is November 25th, so we'll just call this day after Thanksgiving post-turkey day data.xlsx. Okay. All right. Okay. So now we have this query, and what we want to do next is actually go back to data. We want to manipulate another data set, and then we want to merge that with this one. Okay, so nice thing about Power Query Editor is that you can have more than one file open at a time. So remember the V-Dem data are in CSV format, so let's open from file from CSV, text CSV. All right, and there we see the V-Dem data. Import that. And just like last time, what we're going to do is we're going to, instead of just loading it, we're going to transform it first. Okay. Hope your computer's faster than mine. I'm not sure why this is taking so long. Oh, I know, because the V-Dem data are huge. That's why. Here we go. And you'll see what I mean in a second. So we're going to hit transform data. So this data set is quite large. And we know from our previous data set we know that one is 1997 through 2021. So we want to match that. But here in the V-Dem data set, first of all, we have data going all the way back to 1789. Obviously, we're not going to analyze back to 1789 for this project. We also noticed that there are hundreds of rows of columns, each representing a different index in the V-Dem data. Okay, and really, we would be fine for the purposes of our analysis, say with just the basic polyarchy score, the main, most famous measure of democracy in V-Dem. So we're just going to focus on that. And then we also just need the information on state, in country, and year. So first of all, let's go ahead and choose columns. Okay, and I'll select these. So country name is good. Country text ID, this will be really helpful when we're trying to merge data. The country ID itself is not very helpful. So we'll have those two, and then we're going to have year. We need that because we need to match on year as well. And then from there, we just need that one polyarchy measure right there, V2X polyarchy. Hit OK. And this will just keep those columns. All right. So now we've narrowed this down quite a bit, and the next thing we want to do is filter based on year. So we're going to do a number filter, and then we're going to do greater than, is greater than 1996. Hit OK. And now we have data from 1997 to 2021, which is exactly what we want. All right, and this again over here, applied steps, tells us exactly what we did in what order. So if we ever want to go back, we can just do that. And then we're going to hit now close and load. And now notice we have two queries over here in the column. Okay, it's still loading. So we'll wait for it to load, and now we'll save it. Don't save it before it loads, because that'll mess things up. Just wait for it. Just be patient with it. If your computer happens to be slow on a particular day like mine is today for whatever reason. It's a little sleepy from all the turkey or something. So let's go ahead and click on this query again. Now we're going back into the World Bank data. Okay, that should look familiar to you. And now we're going to go up here for our last step, and we're going to merge the queries. Okay, or second to last step. There's one thing I want to do after that. Okay, so we'll hit merge queries, and it'll give us this little tool for merging. We'll see some fields pop up here in a second. All right, so what we want to do is, first of all, we want to select the other table that we want to merge with. So this table is the World Bank data, the female labor force participation and GDP per capita. Next, we want to select on V-Dem core. All right, and then from there, we want to select the variables that we want to match on. But notice that we have an issue here, is that this says country text ID, and we actually don't want. So that's a problem. So let's go back to V-Dem core real quick, and let's change that to country ID so it matches. If I'm remembering correctly, the other one says is country ID. So let's change that. Oh, country code, I'm sorry. So none of this is the same. So we have to change these so that they match. So let's actually, it's not necessary to change this one, but this one definitely. So country code. Whoops, country code. And this should be year. Okay. And then we can just leave that as polyarchy, and year here is a whole number, so that's good. And year here is also a whole number, so that's good. They have to be the similar type to match. All right, so now we're going to try that again. Merge queries. And here we have V-Dem. All right, country code, year, year. Okay, so select. You have to hit Shift, select one, and then hit Shift and select the second one. Okay. All right. So now, so this is going to be left. We're going to do a left join, which means that we're going to join this to this, and we're going to keep all the observations in this table, which is our left table, and this table, which is our right table. We're going to drop anything that doesn't match. All right, and there are lots of other kinds of joins you could do, and we're not going to spend a lot of time going over that right now. But this is the most common type of join, left join. All right. So, and this will suit our purposes just fine. Okay. So let's hit OK. Oops, and I messed that one up again. I wanted to do, that worked, but the way I wanted to do this was to merge queries as new. That way we get a new table, and it doesn't just append it to this table, and we can go back to the original table and see what it looked like before the merger. Just have that there, the original table. I prefer to do it that way, you know, just in case. So okay, so we're just going to do the same thing again now, and we're going to hit OK, and now we're going to get a new table, which is going to be the merge table. Okay. All right, so those are our data in long form. And last step you need to take here on the merge is you need to select basically which variables you want to expand from the merge. What do you want to keep? So let's just keep country code, year, and polyarchy for now, and hit OK. All right, and what that enables us to do when we keep those is we can see if the country, so basically what it did was it expanded what we merged in, and so now we have the V-Dem scores over here for each country year, and we can see that this is Afghanistan all the way through 2021, and then it starts off with the next country up to 2021, and then we can just match that over here just to make sure Albania, just to make sure that the merge was done correctly, right, and there are no major errors. So this is Argentina 1997, so that all looks good, and we could do a little bit more checking, but it looks good. So I'm just going to go ahead and remove these two columns because they're redundant to these over here. Okay, and then that's pretty much it. So now we have V-Dem, GDP per capita, the V-Dem polyarchy score, so we can again rename this because it gives it a new name upon the merge. So we're just going to call this polyarchy. All right. And so we have the polyarchy score, GDP per capita, female labor force participation, the year, the country code, the country name. All right. And the only thing that I want to do here is change this into date. That way, when we get it into Power BI, it's going to recognize it as a date. It's going to be able to deal with time series and all that stuff. So my experience has been that you need to convert this first to text. And then from there, convert it into a date. For whatever reason, that seems to work better. So change it into just a date. And I would hit add new step rather than replace current. That seems to work better. So now we should get a date for this. My computer's working way too hard to do this. I don't know why. But that's it. Okay, here we go. So last thing is when it converts to date, sometimes it messes up the order. So this is one last step we can do, and this will teach you something new as well. Just hit a sort. Let's see, ascending. And then year, you can do the same thing. Sort ascending. And now our data should be back in order and then ready to be uploaded for analysis into Power BI or whatever other tool we want to use. This is a common format for almost every statistics program or data visualization tool. You would want it in this long form. Okay. And it's a little bit of work to get it in there, but only took us about a half hour, and we're done. And the data are all ready, so we're just going to close and load again. Wait for that to load, and then when that's done, go ahead and save it, and then that's it. You're pretty much ready. You have the merge tab here. That's where your updated data are going to come. There we go. There's the merge data right there. Could take this and copy it and put it into CSV. We can talk about how to transform it a little later, but right now this should be good. Actually, especially since we're using Power BI, this will be fine. And we're just going to go ahead and save that, and then we're done. Okay, see you next time.